Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. Many parents associate the teenage years with difficulty and challenge. It's a time when young people start to shift boundaries and challenge authority, and explore their freedom. I'm here with Saadia Khan. She's an educator. She has been an educator for 15 years, and she has a master's in education. Saadia, you have been working with kids for a very long time in different settings, right? Online settings, in schools, in other places as well. You have kids yourself.
I have six.
6 kids. So how does a parent manage in the teenage years? So what's the additional challenge that a parent might experience in those years?
So I get that question a lot. And I think one of the things we have to remind ourselves is that we are not dealing with a brand new human being once they hit the teenage years. We are dealing with a whole person, and we've been with that person since day one. So you really have to take a holistic approach and not just think, okay, now I need a brand new set of parenting strategies. Now I'm dealing with a teenager. No, we have to go back in time and we have to establish a very close bond, a relationship of respect and trust with our children when they're young, even in infancy, so that in the teenage years, we can actually just continue in that trajectory and build an effective relationship and continue having that kind of open communication and that kind of the idea that our children are open to our influence, that so many of us long for.
And I guess it's also about having respect for your children, right? As they grow, kind of like teach them what they need to know, but then when they get to the teenage years, sort of give them that sort of freedom to be able to explore and make their own decisions.
Absolutely. Sometimes as parents, we feel like we own our children. We feel like they're just extensions of us. But that person is an independent human being. And ideally, you want them to independently flourish in a couple of years outside of your home, right? So are you really setting them up for that? In the teenage years, what a child starts to do, or even a little bit before the teenage years, they start to individuate. So of course, there's going to be pushback. How can they figure out their own identity if they're not pushing back against you? And that's okay. If we view it in this holistic manner, like, of course, my child needs to learn to make their own decisions. Of course, my child needs to learn leadership. Of course, my child needs to know how to deal with failure effectively. Then you don't think of yourself as preventing every possible negative scenario. You think of yourself as a facilitator, as a guide, as a person that really has the child's whole well-being at the center of their heart, but at the same time isn't trying to churn out a mini-me, isn't trying to, basically control everything in that child's life. And the reason this is important is because a lot of parents go at this with an attitude of compliance means I'm doing a good job parenting. And that's not the case at all, because you don't know that child's inner world. And what I see a lot in teenagers, unfortunately, in our community is they've mastered compliance by the teenage years, but they have a whole other life going on, a double life, where they're out of the view of their parents, they're out of the view of societal expectations, and they're doing whatever they want. And because the parent has compliance, they think they've done their job. That's not your job. Your job isn't to have a compliant little teenager on your hands. Your job is to have an individuated human being who would make a good choice whether you're there or not. So that's a much more difficult.
And I guess it starts from a very young age to try and reason with them and teach them how to think, right?
Yeah.
How to understand different things so that when they get to the teenage years, they already have that in their mind. They understand how to reason, how to argue, how to think about different issues, and they can make decisions on their own. They don't need to rely on their parents.
Absolutely. And it's like, you're talking about critical
good decisions,
thinking.
like good choices.
Good decision-making, good choices. That's critical thinking. But on an even more basic level, if your child feels loved, if your child feels like the bond between the two of you is strong at a very, very young age, they're going to grow up trusting you. They're going to grow up respecting you. And then that child will be open to your influence. That child will come to you when they have a problem. The alternate is they don't have a relationship of love. They don't have a relationship of trust. They've been, told obedience is the ultimate route to my approval. And so now they're not coming to you. And when a child is not coming to you, it's not like they're not going to anyone. There's other influences in that child's life. There's TV personalities, there's YouTube personalities, there's TikTok personalities, there's people that are in the school system or even their own friends. But those people are not going to be able to give your child the values that you've identified as important. And in fact, some of those values are completely counter to what you view as important. So how are you going to control that situation, right? I have so many teenagers that I know of personally or that I've worked with in schools. They go to their friends for advice, but their friends have literally as much life experience as they do. That is the wrong person to go to for advice. But why do they do it? Because it's safe. You can talk to your friend won't judge you, your friend won't diminish you, they won't diminish your experience, they will respect you. So we would rather go to somebody who's safe and who validates our experience, all human beings. We're like this too as adults, by the way, than to go, and we would sacrifice experience to have safety. So children are no different.
So Saadia, we get a lot of questions from people saying, my child is, say, doing drugs or engaged in premarital sex or is drinking or doing other things that we would view as un-Islamic and immoral, right? What should a parent do in that circumstance? I know that some parents will just say, like, it's either you stop or you leave the house, right? Do you think that's a good approach or would you suggest something else?
No, I don't think that's a good approach. Islamically, we're supposed to maintain relationships with people even when they're sinning, right? And we're supposed to keep calling them, inviting them with beautiful preaching, with wisdom. That's what the Quran says. But if you think about it also, it's not like my religiosity is a guarantee of my child's religiosity. There's no guarantee. And we know of even prophets who were, of course, extremely religious. They're prophets. They're so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they weren't able to guarantee that guidance for their children. And we have evidence in the Quran of people who were misguided, but their father was a guided individual, or vice versa, right? So you can't guarantee guidance for somebody that you love, but what you can do is create safety. And kicking someone out of the house is the opposite of safety. All that's going to happen is there will be people waiting outside of that home with open arms, ready to embrace your child, and they will become further entrenched in that lifestyle or in that way of thinking. And then you've lost them completely. And by the way, I talk to parents who do this and then regret their decision. And that happens all the time.
It happens often, right?
It happens all the time. So you don't want to be in that situation. And then there's no route to bring that child back necessarily. They're gone. They've cut you off emotionally. So
what's the alternative then? Like, what would you suggest? Let's say you discover something that your child is doing that is so against your values.
Yeah.
What would you recommend be done?
What you can do is say, this is my home and these are my boundaries. So in my home, there's no drugs. In my home, there's no alcohol. In my home, such and such person is not coming for a sleepover, right? This is my boundary. But whatever you do outside, I can't control. I'm going to pray for you. And if you need my help, I'm here to help you. If this is something that you yourself are having trouble with, if this is an addiction, for example, and a lot of times it is, I'm here. What help can I offer? What resources can I tap into to help you with this problem? Because I love you and I want the best for you. And if we keep that, rather than anger, which is a very easy trap to fall into, anger is from shaitan. So while it's okay, of course, perfectly and valid to feel angry, anger should not be our approach, because that's never going to win over anyone's heart. The other evidence, of course, that we have from the Quran is constant dua. I think we really underestimate the power of dua, constantly praying for our children, constantly turning to Allah when they're on a road that we know is a reckless road, and we know that they're going to fall into sin or heartbreak or any kind of problems, and we make dua for them. And let your children catch you making dua for them from a young age, so that they know how much you love them and how concerned you are for their well-being. If they see that, that's going to be very powerful as they get older. Look at my mother. She's constantly crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me. Look how much she loves me. And of course, dua itself has so much power. And ultimately, it also is a reminder that the effort is all that matters. You could be the best parent in the world and not be able to control the outcome of how your child ends up. And you could be the worst parent in the world, and your child could be, Hafiz al-Quran or a very important member of the community who contributes to others and thinks about their well-being. So ultimately, what we're going to be judged on, and I think we have to remember this, is we're going to be asked, how was my effort? Did I really put in the most I could have for this child? And I think as women, it's especially important because the Prophet ﷺ said, each of you is a shepherd and each of you is responsible for his flock. And our flock primarily, no matter what we end up doing, and no matter what other endeavors we have, what talents we have, our flock primarily is our children. And recognizing that, elevating it, really treating it with the seriousness it deserves, I think would completely shift how we approach parenting right from day one.
And I think also, Saadia, having an understanding that, this is not the end all. Like if my teenage child makes a mistake, they're finding their way, right? And they can always turn a path to good, right? It's not like they're bad and they're destined for hell, right?
Well, I mean, all of us, I think, have a couple of years in our teenage years where we start questioning Islam, where we start experimenting perhaps with other ideas, even if we just dabble in them theoretically. That's okay. Like if you've planted seeds at a younger age and you're continuously making dua for your child and you're setting a good example yourself, which is a very important piece of the puzzle that we don't talk about enough, right? Then you have to trust Allah and you have to let go a little bit, right? They're going to make some mistakes. And just because somebody makes a mistake doesn't mean they're a bad person. You make mistakes. I make mistakes. We're a human being. We're going to make mistakes. I mean, where did this idea come from? We don't even hold adults to such high standards, and we hold our children to these impossible standards, right? So there has to be an entryway back for that child once they've made the mistake into the fold of Islam, into the community, into their family. There has to be a strong message. Yes, this happened, but this doesn't define you, and I love you all the same. Like it's really not going to dramatically alter our relationship because you are just worth so much more than that one moment.
Saadia, I want to ask you about a child who might seem disrespectful or rude, rolling their eyes, being sarcastic, mouthy responses to what their parents say under their breath, for example. How should a parent respond to that sort of thing?
So what I would ask in that situation is, are you modeling disrespect? So that's a heavy, heavy question because people don't want to look inwards to see how perhaps that child is mirroring their own behavior. If you're going to speak disrespectfully to others, perhaps outside the home or even within your home, if you're going to speak disrespectfully to your spouse, for example, if you're going to speak disrespectfully to your children, don't be surprised if they start speaking disrespectfully to you. So as adults, we set the standard. Children will absorb the energy we put out. They will mirror back to us the good parts of us and the ugly parts of what we're putting out. So what I would say is you have to speak to your child with respect 100% of the time. When I say that, parents are like, what are you talking about? That's too high. That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Don't you go to work and speak to your boss with respect 100% of the time? Don't you speak to your colleagues with respect 100% of the time? Don't you go to parties and socialize with others and speak with respect? So why don't we have that practice in our homes, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you is he or she who is best towards their family. That's because in your family, it's very easy to relax and be who you actually are. So who are you actually? What's your character really like? Now, of course, if your teenager is disrespecting you, you should set boundaries. You should say, I don't like the way you're speaking. That's not acceptable. And what you can do with a child is you can say there's consequences, right? The natural consequence of this is you wanted to borrow the car on Saturday, you're no longer borrowing the car. You wanted to go out on Friday, you're no longer going out. That's just not happening anymore because I will not be okay with you speaking to me in this manner. So there's going to be a consequence. And they'll learn very quickly because there's still things they depend on you for. And you can just take them away, right? So that's a very clear way to sort of help navigate that with a teenager. But the deeper question is not like we can't just rely on a system of rewards and punishments because that's not really helping them to internalize a certain behavior. The deeper question is, what example are we setting and what kind of environment have we set up in our home?
But sometimes even like the best of parents will have children, because that's what teenage years are like, right? People are experimenting, trying new things, seeing things they saw from outside, perhaps. They behave out of character. Parents often say that their teenagers behave out of character because they're just different in those years, right?
Some of it is hormonal. Like, we expect perfect regulation from teenagers, but if you examine their, like, what's going on in their bodies, they are anything but regulated. So we have to make space for that. They're going through a difficult
time themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to make space for that. We have to show grace. A lot of it is also connected to things as simple as not getting enough sleep or not eating properly. Like, sometimes that's the source of the problem. So as a parent, it's your job to be wise and ask yourself, am I really being disrespected here? Or is this child completely sleep deprived right now because of A, B, and C, right? And if it's some kind of external factor, you can show grace and let it go. But if this becomes a repeated behavior, you need to really examine the root. And I can't speak to that because that differs based on your situation is, right? What I do find, though, is when I talk to teenagers, and I really talk to teenagers and I listen to what they have to say. Do you know what they say to me? They say, my parents don't listen. They don't care what I think. They don't care what I feel. They're not really listening when I try talking to them. And I think that's a valid problem.
So do you think parents are shutting them down? Like, how do you think it works? Like, a child says something or articulates a point and the parent just dismisses it?
I think sometimes when teenagers are trying to talk about something, they don't necessarily go about it with wisdom, right? So they have a problem and they might raise their voice. Now the parent is focused on, how dare you raise your voice at me, rather than the actual problem they were bringing up. So how about instead we say, hey, I don't like the way you're talking to me, but I can see that you're really hurting about this. Let's sit down and talk rationally. Let's sit down and respect each other and have a conversation about this, because this seems really important. And in that way, you've shifted the focus from the way they spoke to you, like that outburst, to the actual thing bothering them.
So I guess you have to have emotional intelligence to do that, right?
I mean, nothing requires greater emotional intelligence than parenting, right? And that's the beauty of it. It can be extremely rewarding and fulfilling then, because it's like you consider it like a project, like a something that every moment that you make the right choice, you are gaining the approval and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now at the end of it, you have this beautiful human being that you helped to co-create, right? What could be more rewarding and fulfilling than that, subhanAllah? But one thing I have noted about the listening piece that I did want to talk about is, when our children are young, we've got to listen to them. When your child is 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, even 10 years old, and they're coming to you all excited and talking to you about everything that happened in their day and trying to get your attention, and it's kind of ridiculous conversations that you're not really interested in, right? And you turn away, or you stay on your phone, or you stay in your conversation, or you keep cleaning, or you keep doing something else. What you're communicating is your inner world doesn't matter to me. I'm not interested in what you have to say. And they internalize that. So then why do we expect at 13, 14, 15, and now they're suddenly going to talk to us, and they're going to open up to us, and they're going to tell us everything going on? No, they shut down, and they shut down because you kept consistently communicating that what they have to say isn't important. So I would encourage parents with younger children to go ahead and listen to everything they want to tell you, validate it, make them feel important, make them feel seen, make them feel heard, and focus on their talents, their strengths, make them feel like, the Prophet ﷺ, every time Fatima walked into the room, he stood up, he greeted her, his eyes lit up, his whole body language changed, he made space for her. This is how you teach a child their worth and value. And when they have that going into the teenage years, they will respond to you. They are human beings. They're not some different species.
They're not an alien.
If they feel loved and respected, you will see that love and respect coming back towards you. And it's just a couple of years of their life, and then you have a lifelong friend. You have somebody that you help to raise that will actually be a source of strength and support for you as well. And that's a beautiful thing.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you, Saadia. Assalamu alaikum.
We have some exciting news to share with you.
As you know, Let the Quran Speak has been on TV screens and social media for 22 years.
We've been reaching people all around the world, spreading positivity and good, and helping people experience the beauty of Islam and the accomplishments of Muslims.
We've been shooting in this very space for the past 2 decades.
And now, with the help of Allah, we're about to get the keys to Muslim Media Hub.
If you like what we're doing, you're gonna love Muslim Media Hub even more.
Because it's the next step up.
Think new TV shows, podcasts, social media content, and films.
It will have new talent, more youth, and a lot more space and resources to do what we love. Spread the message of Allah.
Our Muslim Media Hub costs $2.4 million.
We must close on this building on October 16, and for that, we need to raise $300,000.
How will we raise $300,000?
Easy, Safiya. All we need is 300 people to give $1,000 each.
If you can be one of this select 300, that's fantastic.
Otherwise, please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help establish Muslim Media Hub so we can do this.
It's a Saadia Jariyah, something that will continue to be of benefit to the Muslim community long after we are gone.
Thank you, and may Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always.
Assalamu alaikum.